I'll never forget the first time I laid eyes on that mansion. It looked like one of those places you see in glossy magazines, marble staircases, glass walls that catch the sunrise just right. Gardens trimmed so neat they could have been painted on. But the truth, inside, it was colder than stone. A house with too much money and not enough love. And at the center of it all was Richard Donovan, a billionaire who ran his life like a tight schedule. Wake up at 5:30, work out, sharp suit by 7, black coffee on the table. Nothing out of place. He was the kind of man people envied on the outside, but when you looked closer, you saw a widower who'd lost more than just his wife. He'd lost the warmth in his home too. Sitting at the far end of that ridiculously long dining table was his daughter Amelia. 14, thin as a reed, dressed in soft pastel dresses that only made her look smaller in that wheelchair. She didn't speak much sometimes, not at all. Richard would nod, she'd nod back, and the silence between them was so heavy it made the maids quit one after another. But it hadn't always been like that. Before the accident, Amelia was fire loud, quick, full of stubborn joy. She'd race barefoot across the yard if she saw a flower she liked, or tug at her mom's hand just to get ice cream at the worst possible time. That's how the night happened, the storm, the car crash, her mother gone in an instant. And Amelia, trapped in that chair. Now here's the part that cut deeper than any broken bone Richard, crushed by grief, once whispered the words no father should ever say. If you hadn't begged for ice cream, she'd still be alive. He said it in anger, but it landed like stone in his daughter's chest. From that night on, Amelia folded into herself, silent, guilty, blaming her own small hands for her mother's death. 2 years passed. The house got quieter, colder. Maids came and went, unable to reach the girl or bear the weight of Richard's grief. Until one spring afternoon, a little yellow taxi rolled up to the gate and out stepped Elena Cruz. 24, a maid with no fancy resume, just a reputation for patience, humor, and a spark that could light up the dullest room. She walked through those iron doors with a modest suitcase and a grin that said, "I'm not afraid of this place." Amelia watched her from the upstairs window, eyes flat. She'd already decided she wouldn't like this one. And Richard. He barely looked at the file his assistant handed him. "She won't last," he muttered. But Elena wasn't like the others. Her first morning, she marched into that echoing dining room carrying a tray of golden fried plantains and cocoa, humming like she had an audience. She set the food down with a flourish. "Breakfast fit for a princess," she announced. Amelia ignored her, so Elena leaned close and whispered, "Better check it, or I might have slipped pepper soup in your cocoa." Silence. Not even a glance. Most people would have given up, but Elena grinned wider. "No wahala. I'll just talk to the food myself. Plantain, you look fine today. Cocoa, you're steaming with drama." And that was when it happened, the tiniest twitch at the corner of Amelia's mouth. A smile trying to sneak out. Elena caught it like a hawk, but didn't say a word. Instead, she kept going, making up silly conversations with toast and papaya until the girl's fingers brushed the edge of the plate as if considering. Richard entered just then, crisp suit, unreadable face. "Morning," he said flatly. Elena looked up. "Good morning, sir. Fastest breakfast in the state. Guinness World Record for pap making belongs to me." For the first time in years, a faint sound slipped from his chest, half a chuckle quickly buried. He left, but the ice had cracked. Over the next days, Elena pushed Amelia's wheelchair through long, cold halls, filling the silence with endless stories, goats blocking the road, neighbors fighting over tomatoes that shone like they were auditioning for beauty pageants. Amelia stayed stone-faced until one morning she suddenly spoke. You've been talking all this while because you think I'm deaf." Elena froze, then burst into laughter so loud it shook the walls. "Ah, so you've been listening to me this whole time. And here I thought I was talking to the curtains." Amelia smirked just for a second, but that second was enough. One night, sitting by the window while rain tapped the glass, Amelia's voice cracked open wider. "If I hadn't asked for that ice cream, she'd still be here. And look at me now, crippled, broken. Daddy doesn't look at me the same. He blames me, I can feel it." Her eyes glistened, but she held the tears back like they were a dam. Elena knelt, took her trembling hands and said softly, "Listen to me. This wasn't your fault. You were just a child asking for ice cream. That's not a crime. What happened was an accident, terrible, yes, but not your doing. You're not broken. You're still here, and that means you're stronger than you think." For the first time, Amelia cried, not because of guilt, but because someone finally told her she wasn't to blame. But Elena didn't stop there. She went straight to Richard's study one evening, her voice steady, even though her hands shook. "Sir, your daughter thinks you hate her. She believes you blame her for everything." Richard's jaw tightened. "You weren't there that night. You don't know." "I know she was 10. Elena shot back. "I know children ask for things all the time. And I know she's been carrying guilt because you haven't told her otherwise. She doesn't need a driver or a nurse. She needs her father." Richard's voice broke for the first time in years. "Every time I see her, I see my wife. The night I failed to protect them." Elena leaned closer. "You didn't fail. You loved your wife. But don't let grief steal the love you still have left. Don't let it steal your daughter, too." He didn't answer right away. His eyes glistened. His fingers drummed on the desk. Finally, he whispered, "You've given me a lot to think about." Meanwhile, Elena had a different battle to fight with Amelia's legs. Doctors said her body was fine, but her mind was locked in fear. "What if I try and fall?" Amelia whispered. "Then I'll catch you," Elena said without hesitation. One afternoon, in the center of the thick-carpeted sitting room, Elena helped Amelia rise. Her legs shook stiff as old wood, but they held. Amelia's eyes widened. "I'm standing." Richard, unseen in the upstairs hallway, froze at the sight. One step Elena encouraged. Amelia bit her lip, concentrated, and slid her foot forward. It wasn't graceful, but it was a step. Then another. By the third, her body gave out and she collapsed into Elena's arms. "I only took a few steps," she muttered, ashamed. Elena smiled like she'd just watched a miracle. "A few steps is all it takes to start a journey, and you, my friend, just started yours." From above, Richard's heart cracked open. Pride, wonder, something he thought he'd buried, they all came rushing back. Days turned into weeks. The mansion slowly filled with laughter. Amelia helped in the kitchen, sketching gardens in her notebook, giggling as Elena burned toast on purpose just to make her smile. Richard found himself standing in doorways, listening, remembering what a home sounded like. But the wound wasn't fully healed. One night, Amelia whispered to Elena, "Do you think Daddy will ever love me like before?" Elena brushed a braid from her cheek. "Love doesn't vanish. Sometimes it hides behind pain. But yes, he does. He just needs the courage to show you." And from the shadows, Richard stood by the window, watching guilt and hope warring inside him. He heard the words, saw his daughter lean on this young maid like family, and wondered if he could finally forgive not her, but himself. That's where the story leaves us. A billionaire father, a daughter who just took her first shaky steps, and a maid who walked into a frozen house and melted the ice. But here's the question I can't stop asking. Was Richard right to distance himself, grieving in silence all those years? Or was Elena right that by shutting out his daughter, he nearly lost her for good? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because stories like this aren't just about one family in a mansion. They're about forgiveness, guilt, and the kind of love we either bury or fight to bring back. And if you've ever seen a child blamed for something that wasn't their fault, or a parent who couldn't find the words, I want to hear about it. Because maybe, just maybe, sharing these stories is how we learn to walk again, too.